I have a 22-year-old daughter who just graduated university and is in her first job. Emma moved from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I live, and she's now working in Tucson, Arizona for an organization called the Primavera Foundation. The Primavera Foundation works with the poor and people who are coming out of addictions or out of homelessness, out of all kinds of difficulties, and helps them get what they need so that they can get their lives back together, so they can begin to provide for their own families and learn the skills they need and deal with the issues that knock them down. Let me tell you something about my daughter, Emma, and then I want to ask you a couple of questions about yourself. My daughter believes three things, and she has believed these three things about her life for a very long time. She believes that she's going to spend her life doing work that she loves to do for causes that matter with people that she likes. That's what she believes. She's going to do work that she loves to do. Work isn't going to suck. She's not going to be stuck doing stuff she hates. She's going to do things that actually make a difference. It's not going to be punch the clock, thank God it's Friday. It's going to be difference-making work, contributing work, in which, because she works, the world is better, people are better, neighborhoods are served. And she's going to like the people she works with. You might be thinking, and I'm really curious what you're thinking, isn't it self-evident that those three things are what life is all about? What is special about wanting to do work you love that matters with people you like? Are you thinking that, or are you having a different kind of a thought? What are you thinking? Okay, so one of the things that you're thinking is she isn't going to be in control of who she's working with. And so let me just ask you, therefore, that is an unrealistic hope or expectation? Maybe. Okay, good. What are you thinking?
Sometimes in order to do something that you like, you might have to start off with something that you don't necessarily like. And
right.
Sometimes that can discourage you from your ultimate goal, but sometimes it helps you get through it so you can get to where you want to be.
Right. So if you didn't hear that, sometimes you, in order to end up doing what you like to do, have to do stuff that you don't like to do. And that can even be discouraging and can knock you off course. So do you think about that? Okay. What else are you thinking? Yes?
You can be happy wherever you work. It's your decision.
Okay.
You're like, this job sucks, so my life sucks.
So the comment here is that happiness is a decision you make, and you can bring yourself to whatever you're doing and bring meaning to where you are. You don't just have to look for that place who gives meaning to you. Is that a fair translation? Do I go to my work for fulfillment, or do I bring fulfillment to my work? That's another way to put that. Are circumstances in charge of my happiness? What else are you thinking? Any other reflections? What do you think you're going to be doing with your life? Not in terms of the particularities, but in terms of this business of taking yourself out into the world and contributing yourself to the world. What are you thinking that's going to be like for you? Or what are you worried about in relationship to that? Anybody? Some brave soul?
I'm going to be helping others with my job, with my attitude, with everything. I want to impact others in a positive way and hope their lives are better from meeting me.
You're going to be helping others, you're going to impact others in a positive way, and you're going to hope that their lives are better. as a product of the fact that they had the good fortune of meeting you. Yeah, good. Others, how are you thinking about things? I mean, obviously, you're in a staging ground for what comes next. So I know you're thinking about it.
I don't know, sometimes I worry that even though I want to make a difference, I might not feel like I am.
No.
And so I think that might kind of be a speed bump.
So the comment, it's kind of related to the comment in back in my mind. You sometimes, though you want to make a difference, you worry that you might not feel that you are. And that could be a speed bump. Is it fair to say, I'm going to try to be the master of the obvious, hopefully not all the way to the ridiculous, but is it fair to say that a significant amount of thinking, wondering, maybe even worrying that takes place in your life is related to the question, how will this connect me to a life that I hope will be meaningful? Is that fair to say that you think about that?
Yeah.
Will this get me there? On up front, guys, that's the joy of coming into this. I'm kidding. Very nice seats. There's a whole row right here. Right here is a beautiful row that you guys can take. While I'm in the business of asking simpleton questions, let me ask one more. What is your life for? To serve God. Others? Why do you exist? Oh, I thought that was a hand. You know, it qualifies though. So why do you exist?
I don't know, really. To satisfy myself, either to like myself as a person or myself as God made. So there's the religious part and there's the making from selfish part.
There's both parts, you're saying. Yeah. And sometimes there's a war that goes on between those two parts, isn't there? Right. It's an honest comment. What are you for? Are you for something? Is there purpose in your existence?
Isn't it kind of like the question, what's the meaning of life? Like, you don't really know until you figure it out. Just like one of those, you can't really find an answer to.
Well, so it is kind of like what's the meaning of life, but the what's the meaning of life is not necessarily a question that one doesn't know the answer to.
It's one that people keep always asking.
It is, it is, it is. So let me just share some things. We'll converse back and forth through this hour so that you know who you're talking with, so you know the bias I bring to the conversation. That way you can kind of deal straight in deciding whether or not to work with the things I have to share or not. My conviction, my understanding, is that you and I exist to be of service to something that is more important than ourselves. My understanding is that we exist purposefully, that we have been designed uniquely. There isn't two of you in this room and there isn't two of you on the planet that have the same wiring, the same strengths and weaknesses, the same distinctive, amazing gifts and unbelievable vulnerabilities. I mean, you know that if everybody knew what you know about you, some people would be horrified, right? So you're remarkably gifted and unique and vulnerable in just your way. And there are things that you're going to be terrific at. And there are other things you probably shouldn't do because you would not be terrific at. And life is meaningful when life is in service. That is, when it's not just about ourselves. The comment about, the war, I know the war very well. when the side of the battle wins, where I just think about what I want, everything goes downhill. That's not a comment of speculation or faith. That's a comment of observation. It's the way things are designed. When it's all about me, it's really fun until pretty soon it isn't fun at all, and then it's horrible. We're designed with a certain grain that makes it so that when our lives are of service and value to the world and to others, our lives become bigger. There's a paradox here. In a sense, when I am willing to die to my selfishness, I get more of me and the experience of being the being that I am. And there's a paradox here. When I'm willing to be less and to be second and have it not be all about me, I find that there's largeness. It's almost as though when we are willing to go small, we grow bigger. That's my understanding. I'm not saying that's something you have to agree with. I'm saying that's my understanding from observing how life actually works. And so what I want to do and what I've been asked to do is engage you in a conversation for this short period of time around something that's called servant leadership, why it matters, and to offer a few helps as you think about what you're doing right now. There aren't any freshmen here, are there? Are there freshmen here? Okay, so all the way through. We got freshmen. How many sophomores? Juniors and seniors. Okay. Some of you are closer to that line where you're going to walk across, and then the next thing that you're wondering about is going to happen. So I've been asked to talk with you about servant leadership, and I want to talk with you a little bit about what is underneath servant leadership, which is life itself, and really to come to your comment, Taylor, about the fear we have that although we want our lives to count, we might not be sure that they do. And the comments you made. What's your name, sir? Matthew. About how meaning is something that we bring, not just something that we seek. So how many of you have heard the expression servant leadership? Couple? What do you think it means? Servant leadership. Anybody?
Leading by example.
Okay, good. Leading by example. What else?
It's kind of like putting people who you're leading as more important than yourself. Like
Okay.
serving them, serving the people who are looking at you.
So you're serving the people that you're leading as more important than yourself.
Like using your power or your status wherever you are in life to better other people or an organization or something like that.
So it's a question of if I have certain privileges, if I have certain power, if I have certain position, is it for me or is it for the bettering of others? And you're saying that servant leadership says it's for the bettering of others. Yeah? Good. When you hear these answers, or when you just hear the expression servant leadership, do you think of it as strong or weak? Come on. Strong? Any courageous answers in the weak direction? Come on. Weak?
Yeah.
Say more. Oh, that's beautiful. I'll pay you later. So that was good. I was in Hong Kong in April, and whenever I go to China, they pack my calendar a little bit, Jack, like you did today. Which I always tell people, if I'm going to get on an airplane and I'm going to have to sleep in a hotel and I won't be with my family, then you may as well work me hard, because let's get something out of it, because travel is a price in a lot of ways, and so I always say that in China as well. So I teach a doctoral class there on servant leadership once a year, and then I do a bunch of other stuff while I'm there. And one of the things they asked me to do was address a group of about 125 young Chinese businessmen and women from Hong Kong. So these would have been 25 to 45-year-old professionals and businessmen and businesswomen. And so I sent them my topic, which was on servant leadership. And when I got back a copy of the advertisement that they had put on the into the newspaper, the title of my talk was Impotent Leadership. I said we're going to talk about servant leadership, and they titled it Impotent Leadership in the newspaper. And so I Skyped with Moses Leung, who is one of my friends there, and I said, "What were you doing?" He said, "Oh, a lot more people will come. If we said servant leadership, they would say, oh, that's weak, and they won't come." But he said, "Did you see down below, we said, when we say impotent leadership, we're talking about the claim by servant leadership that it's strong." He said, "I'm calling it impotent leadership because they'll say, yeah, I kind of think it is impotent, but they actually admitted it, so they'll come, and then you can talk to them about servant leadership." So I thought that was, it worked. We had a great turnout, and we were able to have a conversation. I want to tell you a little bit about what we know. Hang with me for a few minutes. This won't be necessarily the most fun part of the conversation, but I want to tell you about what we know from research about the kind of leadership that is more effective, that is actually strongest. And then I want to walk through some things about servant leadership with a couple of stories. There is an idea that if you are a braggadocious, audacious kind of thug who doesn't care what people think and charges through the room and makes heads turn whenever you walk past because you think you're better than other people, and demands things and pounds your fist on the table, that you will get better results in your leadership. I'm talking about leadership now, and it cuts across the board. So think about it from the standpoint of your profession. Every one of you has a profession you're preparing for, and in that profession, there are leaders. In that profession, there are people who exercise influence that have an impact on what it's like to go to work there. There is an idea that that kind of a leader is more effective. Probably they make more money for the organization. Probably they get better results because they pound their fist and they're self-centered and they go after just exactly what they want. We hear this all the time. I know that this is an idea that's out there. For example, because on Wall Street, it is believed by people who invest money that that kind of a leader will give them more return on their investment because they hire that kind of a leader. The data, the research is extensive, and it shows the exact opposite. I won't walk you through it, but there was a huge body of research looking at businesses and organizations around the world that outperform, that out-innovate, that out-earn, that bring new products to market faster, that deliver better health care, that produce better test scores, however you want to measure greatness, that do better than the others. And to a person, the leader of those organizations had two qualities: humility and fierce integrity. Two qualities. It wasn't about them, and they were going to do the right thing even if it cost them. Now, does that square with your assumption about leadership? That having my ego in check and being committed to do the right thing, not just the thing that looks like it's going to pay, gets better results. Does that square with how you look at the world? I'm not saying do you agree that that's good. I'm going to assume you do. I'm going to assume you agree that's good, but does it square with your view of the world?
I think it just makes you look more trustworthy. Like you're working for not just yourself, but for the betterment of the whole organization.
Yep.
So it makes people trust you more and want to work harder for you.
So the comment is it makes you more trustworthy. I'm going to come back to that. It makes people want to work for you because they know that they believe, at least, they hope that you're not in it just for you. You're in it for something that is good for others. And so they're willing to bring more of themselves to you if you're that kind of leader, right? What do others think?
In my mind, business and leadership are separate. Leadership is something that is a social aspect where when people refer to business, I naturally think of self-made programs and things that are work to be efficient, and sometimes I feel like people out-efficient each other.
Okay, so in your mind, I'm not quite sure whether you like this or not, but in your mind you think of business and leadership in two different categories.
Correct. So when you say like, people, is that leadership or the ones who hit on the table? No, but is it good business?
Ah.
I would be with that. And
Okay.
wrong.
Beautiful. I'm grateful for that comment. So the thought here is that not good leadership, but maybe good for business. Maybe good for business.
I would say I have to agree with that, because when I think of really great leaders, a lot of times they're associated with nonprofit organizations who aren't necessarily working to create a bunch of money, whereas, like you said, like another, I wouldn't necessarily call them leaders, I would just call them bosses.
Okay.
People that were working to make money.
All right, so there's an idea that the making of the money thing, you think of the great leaders in terms of nonprofit or social good work, but business, maybe not great leaders. Yeah. I recognize that thought. And it's related to yours. Well, the findings are, can I just talk for a second? Don't paint me into a corner here. I've spent most of my life in the nonprofit sector. I've spent most of my life working with homelessness and with children who need mentors because moms and dads are in jail. My life is in the community sector, but I'm going to talk for just a minute about business and making money. I'm going to do that so that we could try to lock in some things that apply across the board to all kinds of work. The research has proven, usually one doesn't want to use such a strong word as conclusively, but it's such overwhelming repeated research, I think it's conclusive, that business leaders who are humble, who are driven by integrity, and for whom money is not the center of their attention, make more money, build better businesses, and beat the competition. That's what the research shows. We have a hard time believing that because society gives us all these examples of the Donald Trumps, right? You're fired. And we think that probably works better in business, to your point. I mean, you said that because you kind of believe that, and I kind of believe that, and most people kind of believe that. It isn't true. I can take you to the kind of leader you're thinking of, thinking just about the money and just about themselves, and I can show you how they are underperforming, how they're ruining their prospects because they're thinking so selfishly. And again, the research shows that the companies in the world that rise to the top of their sector, that beat the companies you're talking about, are led by ego-controlled, humble, high-integrity people. And I just need to say this as often as I can because the voice on the other side that says it isn't so is so loud. It's dead wrong, but it's so loud that we believe that nice guys and nice girls finish second or third or fourth or last. That's what we believe. And for those of you who think that there's a trade-off to make between being a good and moral and ethical and kind and respectful human being and doing good work out there for the organization you serve, that we think there's a trade-off, I want you to bring them together so that you can do the courageous, hard, right work of growing great organizations. I don't have time to prove it, but I can. It's been proven that it's true. What I've been doing over many years is looking at the behaviors that produce extraordinary results. I wonder, is there someone technologically savvy in this room? I've just decided that among other things I want to do over the next couple of minutes is if somebody can pull it off with the screen, I'd like to show a 4-minute video clip. Is there someone technologically savvy who can pull that off? Is that thing wired up to sound? Before we even go there, leave it go. Leave it go. I'll make this available through a link, and you can watch it. I case story businesses and organizations that are led by servant leaders. And what is remarkable to me is that if you identify for me a business or an organization that is number one in its space, it's the best children's hospital in the country, it's the best Catholic high school in the country, it's the best organization at manufacturing water pumps in the country. We walk into that company and we will find a servant leader at the head. Now, the businesses and the organizations that are in the newspaper, who are led by the self-centered, money-grabbing people, are the ones that we know about. We don't hear about the great ones because they're not in the press. We hear about the ones that hit the press. And isn't it evident, right on the face of it, that they're not good, that they don't perform well, that they ruin fortunes, that they destroy opportunity? And yet we still believe that in terms of business, servant leadership is weak. I want to just name quickly 5 behaviors that great leaders learn to practice. And this comes from looking at many organizations and companies in countries around the world. 5 behaviors that great leaders learn to practice. And we'll go through them quickly because I want to just talk with you about this issue of having our lives count. Number 1, great leaders provide for the people who work for them a purpose for their work. This is always the case. In usual terms, we talk about this in terms of vision. Why does this organization exist? Does Evansville University have a purpose statement, a vision statement? What is it?
Transform students' lives, making them into ethical, productive,
Put you on the spot. Good, good. So the transformation of the lives of students, so that then students become agents of transformation in the world. I mean, that's your vision. Transformation of the lives of students. Every organization or business you will ever work for can have a fantastic vision statement or a terrible one. A great vision elevates people to do great work. I had a student once who said to me, well, I'm the store manager at, okay, I'm not going to name the store. It's one of the several fast food restaurants that serves roast beef. Now I've narrowed it down to 2. So let's call it Roast Beef Express. She said, look, I'm the store manager at Roast Beef Express. There's nothing purposeful about Roast Beef Express. So I can't give people a vision that makes them really excited about coming to work. Well, I said, well, what do you do then? She said, well, I threaten them and I promise rewards. You know, it's carrots and sticks. That's all I've got. I got carrots and sticks. You know, if you do this, I'll do this for you. If you don't do it, I'll do that. She said, that's all I have, because for crying all day, it's roast beef sandwiches. How do you have a great vision about roast beef sandwiches? What she was saying was, some work just isn't meaningful. To your point, some work just isn't meaningful. I asked her if she had ever been to Chick-fil-A. Do you have Chick-fil-A out here? Yeah. Do you like it?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, when I go through the drive-thru at Burger King, which is actually improving, they're doing something. They have new leadership. But when I go through the drive-thru at Burger King, which I shouldn't do, but I do, and I get to the window and I say to the person who hands me a Whopper, "Thanks." What I get back is, "No problem. No problem." Which of course makes my day, not being a problem for the person. And I drive away feeling fantastic because I wasn't a problem for him. When I go through the drive-thru at Chick-fil-A and I say thank you, anybody know what I hear?
Cheerfulness. Type of people that you can punch in the face and they'd still be smiling. Yeah.
But you shouldn't. You shouldn't. My pleasure. It's my pleasure. Well, it's fast food, isn't it? It's just fast food, isn't it? Like, how could that be meaningful work? Which is what my student at Roast Beef Express said. It's fast food. Here's the thing. Any work, all work, is intrinsically meaningful. All work is meaningful. Some work can be rendered menial by leaders who give it no meaning. If you're in leadership, you need to bring meaning to the people who work with you. Now, to your point, everybody has the opportunity to bring meaning for themselves. So there's kind of a double sword here. If you're in leadership, it is your responsibility to connect. Why does this matter to what is this task I'm doing? So people can see that it matters. The Chick-fil-A, founder of Chick-fil-A, Truett Cathy, said, I consider it a world-changing opportunity every time I'm face-to-face with someone. No matter how briefly, if I'm face-to-face with someone, I can change the trajectory of their lives by how I treat them. And he imbues that down into the organization. What's the purpose there? It's to have that encounter at the counter that is life-changing. And he helps them see that. Now, as a worker, I don't actually need my boss to give me meaning. So if I'm talking to a bunch of people who are going to become leaders, which I am, it's your responsibility to bring purpose to work. I'm also talking to people who are going to get jobs that they might not love for a while on their way. You bring meaning to it yourself. It's our responsibility to know that our moments count. Second, so number one, leaders bring vision to work. Number two, leaders are servants of everybody who works for them. A number of you said this beautifully. What's your power for? If it isn't to equip and empower the people who you want to do great work for you. And so, while it's your responsibility to make sure vision is clear, and purpose is clear, and resources are available, it's their responsibility to get all the work done. You don't do the work. You don't do all the work. Everybody does the work. And so it's your job to serve them so they can do it. A great team leader, if you're going to be a charge nurse one day, if you're going to be, head of a department of a public school, I don't know where you're going to end up. If you're going to own a small company or be a leader of a division in an engineering firm, and you've got people working with you, reporting to you, put the phrase into your mouth every day, is there anything I can do to make your work easier? Can I do anything for you? Can I help you? What do you need? Anything in your way that I could deal with? Leaders have to serve. I know a lot of leaders who never ask that question. They're not great leaders. Colin Powell once said that leadership is solving people's problems. Leadership is solving your people's problems. He says the day your soldiers stop bringing you their problems is the day you stopped being their leader. But I know bosses who lock themselves in their office and say, figure it out yourself. That's not great leadership. Number 3, leaders set values. What's a value? It's here's how we do it here. This is what we stand for. These are our principles, and we're not going to cross them. I have a friend who was CEO of a large children's hospital, and one of the values at Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh was that people would be treated with dignity. And by people, they meant everybody, including the anesthesiologist and the nurse and the janitor, everybody. The people who bring the meals to the patients, people will be treated with dignity. The only problem in Children's Hospital was that the top doc, the famous doctor, the superstar, the guy written up in the medical magazines that helped give the hospital its luster, was a jerk and treated everybody like they were scum and beneath him. It's a values violation. Who deals with that? The leader has to. It's a leader's job. It's a leader's job. We can't do anything about that person because they helped make our school famous. Oh, we can't do anything about that person. They have so many dollars in sales every year. Yeah, but they're cutting ethical corners. Yeah, but you know, it's about a quarter of our sales. No, we can't really touch that. That's a leadership failure. My friend Roger went to the top doc and said, here at Children's Hospital, we treat people with dignity and respect, and you're not doing that. That's unacceptable. It's unacceptable in this hospital. And so I've hired you a coach. And this coach is going to work with you so that you can learn how to exercise yourself here according to our values. But it's necessary that you get this down. And the doc paid no attention whatsoever. And so Roger fired him. And a couple of days later, the board of directors almost fired Roger. Those are those test moments. Leadership has to do the right thing because of values. This is my 3rd point. By the way, the performance of Children's Hospital went up. Profitability went up. Reputation went up. Here's the interesting thing about values. When we're tested on values, we think, if I do the right thing, I will lose this. That's how we think. If I deal with that saleswoman who's lied to the customer to get us the money, I will lose my profits. I can't do that. If I deal with this doctor who's a jerk, we'll lose patients. That's how we think. So I have to keep this, so I can't do that. We never see the upside. Turns out that there were fantastic doctors of equal and greater stature to this guy around the country who had thought the thought, I'd love to work at Children's Hospital, but not if that guy's there. And so quality of care went up. Rapport and joy in the operating room went up. Performance of nurses went up because they were valued. Everything went up. Patient care went up. Revenue went up when he did the right thing because of values. Leaders have to deal with the values issues. It's your job to do that. Number 4, if you're going to be a servant leader, you pay attention to your people in terms of what they're great at and what they love to do. And you continuously adjust roles so that the best of your people is what they spend the most of their time at. I wish I could spend half a day with you on this. We really have some damaged ideas about whether it's okay to do the work that we love to do. The best organizations in the world pay attention. They invest in learning. What is that place where your passion and your capacity overlap? Where is that place of overlap between what you love to do and what you're great at doing? And let's design your job in that space. That sounds selfish. We talked about my daughter at the beginning. Sometimes you have to do stuff that you hate. It's true. That's why they call it work. Some stuff isn't avoidable. Sometimes you all have to go out into the production room and staple program books because there's an event that night. So you do it. That's part of life. But in the big sweep of things, my passion and my capacity, what's the overlap? Leaders pay attention to that and steer you little by little more and more into that space. Why is that? Anyone want to guess why that's a smart thing to do if you're a leader? What you love to do and what you're great at doing is what you're asked to do. Anybody want to guess why that's a great idea? People want to be there, keep them around.
And it makes you a more efficient worker if you're good at it.
You're worth 50 times more when you're doing the stuff you're good at and love than even when you're doing the stuff you're good at but hate. Everyone in this room, I want to just sit on this for a second. I want to state something that is too obvious. Everyone in this room is brilliant at doing some things that you would rather have a root canal than do. You don't mind doing it once, and you don't mind doing it for a day. But to have to do it every day, you're good at it. You are good at it. You're better than others. But it stabs a knife in your soul. I promise you this is true. Everybody here is good at stuff that you hate doing. And since you were this big, you were told, you're really good at that. You should do more of that. And it's not true. The research on strengths makes this very, very clear. You will never be brilliant plowing yourself into the stuff you're really good at but don't like. You'll be brilliant at plowing yourself into the stuff that you love to do and are good at. In fact, if you're pretty good at it and love to do it, you'll become masterful because you'll do it and do it and do it and get better and better at it. But if it's, I'm good at it, I'm proficient, do I have to do that again? That never leads to brilliance. And so we tell our children the wrong thing. We tell them they should do the stuff that they're good at. And we forget to ask them what lights them up. Anybody identify with this?
The parable of the three workers. They're all doing the same task, but someone walks by and sees them. The first person says, "What are you doing?" Man says, "Oh, I'm just making a living for my family."
Mm-hmm.
Ask the second person what they're doing. Said, "Oh, well, I'm earning my apprenticeship so I can get a promotion and move up." Ask the third person what they're doing, and they're all doing the same thing. That person says, "Well, I am building a chapel where thousands of people would come and worship and get connected to their faith." So they're all doing the same task. Each three have a very different way of approaching their information or their task, and it has a whole lot to do with steering them to their strengths and
It does.
their abilities.
It does. It has a whole lot to do with that. So one of the things that I hope for you is that you get some help to sort out where passion and gifting meet for you. There's a lot of ways to do that, but that you take it seriously. Here's a simple thing you can do. Carry around a little notepad, however you do it. And whenever you're involved in something that the time flies by, or whenever you get to the end of a certain kind of work day, a certain kind of task, maybe a certain kind of project that you did that day, and you're on top of the world. You might be tired because you really put yourself into it, but you feel great. Make a note of it. Here's what I did. Here's what I was doing. Just make a note of it. Keep a diary of things that you really loved doing. Just do that for a while. And every now and then review it and look for the patterns. What we have been taught to do is to pay attention to our weaknesses and then double down in our areas of weakness. So we're in 7th grade, we get 3 A's and a C. What gets all the attention? The C. You have to double down on the A's. Why? Because that's where you sing. People feel this is selfish, like we have to be well-rounded. No, we don't. No, we don't. You don't have to be well-rounded. You do have to be teamed up with people who can do stuff you can't, so that teams can be well-rounded, but not individuals. Think about the greatest teams you've ever seen. The players are not well-rounded, but boy, can they play together. So it is not selfish to say to your teammates, you know, in this kind of work, you're going to get the best of me. And with them, to be looking for ways to bring the best of you more and more. That's not selfish. That contributes the biggest impact you can. And so this business of strengths and paying attention to strengths is huge. And 5, a little down the road in your life from perhaps where you are right now, but serving leaders are very disciplined at knowing what is it that the people we serve value about what we do, so that you don't try to be all things to all people, so that you get focused. We think about this as mission. So you get focused on the part you're going to play as an organization, and you don't try to do everything everybody does. You get better and better and better at what your organization is great at. And if there's someone down the street doing something different than you, you're glad they're doing that, and you stick to what you're doing. And so we'll just call that mission. You can put that in as a placeholder. But these 5 areas of vision and character and values and strengths and mission are very important in our leadership. I'd like to come back to a comment, several comments. This guy's gone. And then we'll talk. The value of your life, the significance of your impact, the difference that you make. I'm assuming that for the vast most part, you'd like your life to count, and you'd like to make a difference, and you'd like what you do to matter. I would just like to encourage you to trust that when you get up in the morning and you go out and do the best you can with what's right in front of you, and when the day's over, you put your head back on the pillow, that your day counted. We really beat ourselves up on this issue as human beings. We really flog ourselves over, do I matter? Sometimes we say, you know, am I important? Do I count? We really flog ourselves on this. And here's the way it is. In some sense, you know, one wants to reflect on this through some spiritual lens as well. We are not in a position to be a good judge over how our day counts. That's our problem. Have you ever bumped into somebody who said, remember that time that you said such and such to me, and boy, it's just exactly what I needed to hear, and you didn't remember that it happened? Has that ever happened to you? Has someone ever come to you and indicated to you that something you did or said or they saw was really meaningful for them and you had no clue? Yeah, I see heads nodding. Fact is, our life is full of that, where we're moving through our day, we're doing our best, we respond to things as well as we can. Sometimes it isn't that pretty, but we do the best we can. And then at the end of the day, we beat ourselves up because our life doesn't measure up to some idea we have for it. And I would like to encourage you to try to lay that down. It's very, very impossible for us to know with a mirror looking at ourselves what our worth is. So it's important that we trust that such as we are, going out doing that which we can. By the way, such as we are isn't that pretty, and such as we can isn't that great. We do what we can, which isn't that fantastic, with who we are, which is pretty human. That's all we have. We take that out into the world. We touch the student, we touch the patient, we work with our coworkers, we hang out with our classmates. We do the best. And at the end of the day, we go to bed and go to sleep and say, I'm grateful that my life counted such as it did today. The thing that kills us is when we compare ourselves to each other. That's what kills us, because I look at you and you're looking pretty good, whereas I know what I'm struggling with. You don't know what I'm struggling with. I know what I'm struggling with, whereas you don't look like you're struggling with anything. That's what we do with each other. And it's very, very depleting to our own being when we do that. So you are doing pretty well, aren't you, sir? Yeah, I can tell. We know the truth about ourselves. We see the facade of others. And then we make a comparison. And it never comes out well for us when we do that. In the lens of faith, the way we talk about this is that we take ourselves off the seat of judgment of our own lives and let God be the judge. And so at the beginning of the day we say, this is through a lens of faith. At the beginning of the day we say, use me however you would like to today. Hope it's good. And at the end of the day we say, thank you. For the vast most part, we don't know how our life was useful. And it's okay. It's okay to not. Our lives count. Our lives are useful. Such as we are. Which ain't that hot. So let me stop there and see what kind of thoughts you're having. If you care to share any thoughts here in just the last minute or two, I went to a place here at the end that might just be best for you to be thoughtful, but is there anyone who would like to express anything before I end this? Anybody? Yes, ma'am.
I know in high school we were required to do like 100 hours of community service by the time we graduated. Our school's motto was no bless oblige, which means so much is given, much is expected.
Right.
Being a Catholic, and this goes for any religion, I think personally I feel that I've been blessed with the gift of life, the opportunity to come here to school, to learn, to enrich my brain, to be surrounded with great people, and it's just like the little things in life, it makes you just want to give back more.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's true. That is exactly it. And so you have, what's your name?
Desiree.
Desiree, you have a realistic picture. You're seeing reality as it is. Life is a gift. Much has been given. And so one can be thankful and generous because of that. Every one of you is a leader. Leadership is influence. Whether you speak or don't, whether you have the position of leadership or not, leadership is everyday reality. The people you encounter in any position you hold are impacted by how you show up. Whether you're at the drive-through window at Chick-fil-A, or at the reception desk of the public elementary school, or behind the teacher's desk in the math class, or in the laboratory, working with the things I don't understand and can't therefore even describe. Wherever you are, you exercise impact. Other people are impacted by you. Do you see them? Do you value them? Do you bring yourself well? And our hope is that as you continue through your experience here at Evansville University, you leave here at the end of your 4 years not only with subject matter expertise and a profession you can apply to jobs for, but a readiness to walk into that job, whichever one you find, with your eyes open to ways you can make little differences, sometimes big ones. We don't get to pick. Little differences. My time's up, but I just want to say one more thing. Everybody I know has heroes, people you look up to say, now their life counts. This is back to your point. Their life counts. Oftentimes we say theirs does, mine doesn't. If we took some time and went around the room, I would get names of heroes from you, people you think really did something awesome with their life. And I promise you that every one of your heroes was impacted by people you've never heard of. And they wouldn't be who they are if it weren't for them. We put the wrong lens on things and we don't see this. Everyone you think is fantastic became that way because of other people who did unsung things and you don't know about them. And without them, your hero wouldn't be your hero. So we don't get to pick whether we end up on a big stage or not, or we end up having what we did seem large versus small, because in fact, every act is significant. Some seem big, some seem small, but there is no big and small in reality. Each act is significant. I want you to trust that, so that we give what we can give instead of saying, boy, this is all I could give and they gave that. It's the same meaningfulness. Some look big, some look small. We wish ours looked really like a significant act. We wish there was a newspaper article about us or something. I mean the good kind, not the bad kind. But every human act has huge impact. And I just want to encourage you to think about as you go through the small steps of every day, which is all we get. Well, I wish you all the very best. It's a joy to be with you today.